I'm preparing to go on a compliance walkthrough for some of our clients' facilities, and I wanted to pick you guys' brains. I know you've been helping prepare a lot of plans of correction to recent deficiency notices various clients have gotten. So I wanted to see what are some common deficiencies we're seeing out there so I know what to look for when I'm headed out to the facility.
I think a lot of the times the CCB agents are looking for the obvious things. They're not necessarily diving into, and the inspector's not checking everything, but if your boxes aren't 6 inches off the ground, it's very easy to see. If you're look at a camera security monitor and your date and time stamps don't match their watch or their phone, it's pretty self-explanatory you have a deficiency. If you have a blind spot on your camera system, those kinds of things. But the good state of repair of a facility is a huge one. Ceiling holes, wall holes, electrical outlets not being, having a fixture on them, those kinds of things. It's,
I feel like you just listed a whole lot of things really quickly.
Yeah.
So security,
security,
keeping your facility up in a good state of repair, meaning it's not run down, it's not dirty, there's not cracks or in the wall or dirty ceiling tiles.
Yep.
And I think you also mentioned just general kind of requirements, keeping things 6 inches off the floor.
That's an easy one.
That is. Jess? Nothing? Your clients are perfect, Jess? No deficiencies.
I have nothing to say.
Recently, in the last couple months, there were complaints that had a lot of big inventory issues. So I think that, for instance, plants not being tagged properly or the waste disposal logs at the facility not matching what's in metric. And so I think since there were big issues enough that those complaints came out, they're starting to look for that at every facility that they're going through. So if your plants aren't tagged correctly, that's something that we've seen a lot of, or sometimes where you've gotten, it's seed to sale. So if you can't start from the beginning and track where you found or you've acquired something, then that becomes an issue.
So inventory is the name of the game, right?
Yeah.
I think that's true. But you're right, Jess. I think they are more focused on inventory, how the plants are tagged, how you're filling out your waste logs, where you acquired the product from, that you have all the documentation and records for that. I think what I try and point out to our clients when I'm out at a walkthrough is some of this stuff isn't found in regulation. So for instance, how to properly tag a plant is in your metric guidance, not in regulation. And that's because the regulations say you must comply with the seed to sale system requirements and guidelines. So reading those metric bulletins and handbooks are very important as well.
So basically the regulations incorporate metric
Absolutely.
teachings.
Yeah, and attending those metric trainings, I know that they seem burdensome sometimes, especially because they're scheduled maybe not at the most convenient time, but I would highly recommend doing those metric trainings because you're right, I think a lot of deficiencies result out of inventory and metric. Anything else? I think Jess mentioned complaints. The other thing I think that's a good learning place for deficiencies is those health and safety bulletins. We've seen a lot of issues with pesticides lately, right? So making sure you know what chemicals are in your facility. Do they qualify as a pesticide? And if so, determining if they are approved to be in your facility. That would be a question of your pesticide applicator who has to have the required certification.
And just like you can learn from your own mistakes as a company, learn from other people's mistakes, reviewing those complaints, seeing, they didn't have this pesticide approved for a greenhouse, but it can be used in a warehouse or, whatever it may be. But then asking yourself the question of, am I doing the same thing, thinking I am compliant with the rules, and, we are not.
Yeah, I think that's a lesson we've learned in our firm. We read all of the complaints, right, and use that as learning lessons for our own clients of what is the CCB determining to be a violation,
Mhm.
and how can you operate and prevent such violations in your facility.
Yep.
And I think those bulletins also put people on notice. So obviously you're always supposed to be in compliance with all applicable statutes and regulations, but also if a bulletin comes out and it highlights that whomever was not compliant, and then you're still doing what they were doing, you knew when the bulletin came out.
Mhm.
So
Yeah. Obviously, ignorance of the law, saying you don't know, isn't a defense, but I agree with you. Once there's a formal notice from the CCB, you
Yeah.
really need to comply.
Mhm.
All right, well, thank you guys.